Taking responsibility. Although the words taking responsibility Although the words taking responsibility sounds simple, the concept is neither easy to grasp nor easy to put into practice in your trading. We have all heard the word and been confronted with the need to take responsibility so many times in our lives that it is easy to take for granted that we know exactly what the phrase means. Taking responsibility in your trading and learning the appropriate principle of success are inextricably connected. You have to understand with every fiber of your being the ways in which you are and are not responsible for your success as a trader. Only then can you take on the characteristics that will allow you to join the select group of traders who are constantly successful in the market. At the end of chapter 1, I introduced the idea of stepping into a future version of yourself. In other words, the constantly successful trader that you want to become doesn't exist yet. You must create a new version of yourself, just as sculptor creates a likeness of a model. Setting your mental environment. The tools you will use to create the new version of yourself are your willingness and desire to learn, fueled by your passion to be successful. If the willingness and desire to learn, what the fuck? If the willingness and desire to learn are your primary tools, then what is the medium? An artist creating a sculpture can choose to work in a number of mediums, clay, marble, or metal, for example. But if you want to create a new version of your personality that expresses itself as constantly successful trader, you have only your belief and attitudes. The medium for your artistic endeavor will be your mental environment, where with your desire to learn, you can restructure and install the belief and attitudes that are necessary to achieve your ultimate goal. I'm assuming your ultimate goal is consistency. If you are like most traders, you don't realize the fullest potential of the opportunities available to you. To realize more and more of that potential, to make it more and more of a reality in your life, your primary goal has to be to learn how to think like a constantly successful trader. Remember, the best traders think in a number of unique ways. They have acquired a mental structure that allows them to trade without fear and at the same time keeps them from becoming reckless and committing fear-based errors. This mindset has a number of components, but the bottom line is that successful traders have virtually eliminated the effect of fear and recklessness from their trading. These two fundamental characteristics allow them to achieve constant results. When you acquire this mindset, you too will be able to trade without fear. You will no longer be susceptible to the multitude of fear-based errors that come from rationalizing, subconsciously distorting information, hesitating, jumping the gun, or hoping. Once the fear is gone, there just won't be a reason to make these errors, and as a result, they will virtually disappear from your trading. However, eliminating fear is only half the equation. The other half is the need to develop restraint. Excellent traders have learned that it is essential to have internal discipline or a mental mechanism to counteract the negative effect of euphoria or the overconfidence that comes from a string of winning trades. For a trader, winning is extremely dangerous if you haven't learned how to monitor and control yourself. If we start from the premise that to create a consistency traders must focus their effort on developing a trader's mindset, then it is easy to see why so many traders don't succeed. Instead of learning to think like traders, they think about how they can make more money by learning about the market. It is almost impossible not to fall into this trap. There are a number of psychological factors that make it very easy to assume that is what you don't know about the market that cause your loss and lack of constant result. However, that's just not the case. The consistency you seek is in your mind, not in the market. These attitudes and belief about being wrong, losing money, and the tendency to become reckless when you are feeling good that cause most losses, not technique or market knowledge. For example, if you could choose one of the following two traders to manage your money, which one would you pick? The first trader uses a simple, possibly even mediocre trading technique, but possesses a mindset that is not susceptible to subconsciously distorting market information, hesitating, rationalizing, hoping, or jumping the gun. The second trader is a phenomenal analyst, what is super operating out of the typical fears that make him susceptible to all of the psychological maladies that the other trader is free of. The right choice should be obvious. The first trader is going to achieve far better results with their money. Attitude produces better overall result than analysis or technique. Of course, the ideal situation is to have both, uh, but you really don't need both, because if you have the right attitude, the right mindset, then everything else about trading will be relatively easy, even simple, and certainly a lot more fun. I know for some of you this may be difficult to believe or even distressing, especially if you have been struggling for years to learn everything you can about the market. Interestingly, most traders are closer to the bhai. Interestingly, most traders are closer to the way they need to think when they first begin trading than any other time in their careers. Many people begin trading with a very unrealistic concept of the inherent danger involved. This is particularly true if their first trade is a winner. Then they go into the second trade with little or no fear. If that trade is a winner, they go into the third trade with even less concern for what will otherwise be the unacceptable possibilities of a loss. Each subsequent win convinces them that there is nothing to fear and that the trading is the easiest possible way to make money. This lack of fear translates into a carefree state of mind, similar to the state of mind many great athletes describe as a zone. If you have ever had the occasion to experience the zone in some sport, then you know it is a state of mind in which there is absolutely no fear and you act and react instantly. You don't wait alternatives or consider consequences or second guess yourself. You are in the moment and just doing it. Whatever you do turns out to be exactly what needed to be done. Most athletes never reach this level of play because they never get past of the fear of making a mistake. Athletes who reach the point where there is absolutely no fear of the consequences of screwing up will usually and quite spontaneously enter into the zone. By the way, a psychological zone is not a condition you can will yourself into the way you can will yourself into feat of endurance. It is a state of mind you find yourself in that is inherently creative, and usually if you start thinking about your action at a rational or conscious level, you pop right out of it. Even though you cannot force or will yourself into a zone, you can set up the kind of mental conditions that are most conducive to experiencing the zone. By developing a positive winning attitude, I define a positive winning attitude as expecting a positive result from the effort, with an acceptance that whatever result you get are the perfect reflection of a level of development and what you need to learn to do better. Be in the zone while trading. That's what the great athletes have, a winning attitude that allows them to easily move beyond the mistake and keep going. Others get bogged down in negative self-criticism, regret and self-pity. Not many people ever develop a positive winning attitude. The curious anomaly of trading is that if you start with a winning trade, you will automatically experience the kind of carefree mindset that is a byproduct of a winning attitude, without having developed the attitude itself. I know this may sound a bit confusing, but it has some profound implication. If a few winning trade can cause you to enter into the kind of carefree state of mind that is an essential component to your success, but it is not founded on the appropriate attitudes, then what you have is a prescription for extreme misunderstanding over the nature of trading that inevitably result in both emotional and financial disaster. Putting on a few or more winning trade doesn't mean you have become a trader, but that's the way it feels because it taps us into a state of mind that only the most accomplished people experience on a constant basis. The fact is, you don't need the slightest bit of skill to put on a winning trade, and if it is possible to put on one winning trade without the slightest bit of skill, it is certainly possible to put on another and another. I know of several people who started their trading careers with fairly substantial string of winning trades. When we are feeling confident and encumbered by fears and worries, it isn't difficult to put on a string of winning trades because it is easy to get into flow, a kind of natural rhythm, where what you need to do seems obvious or self-evident. It is almost as if the market screams at you when you buy and when you sell, and you need very little in the way of analytical sophistication. And of course, because you have no fear, you can execute the trades with no internal argument or conflict. The point I am making is that winning in any endeavor is mostly a function of attitude. Most people are certainly aware of this, but at the same time, most people don't understand the significant part attitude plays in the result. In most sports or other competitive activities, participants must develop physical skill as well as mental skill in the form of strategies. If opponents are not evenly matched in the skill department, the one with superior skill usually, but not always, wins. When an underdog beats a superior opponent, what is the determinant factor? When two opponents are extremely matched, what's the factor that tips the balance on one way or the other? In both cases, the answer is attitude. What makes trading so fascinating and at the same time difficult to learn is that you really don't need a lot of skills. You just need a genuine winning attitude. Experience a fewer more winning trades can make you feel like a winner, and that feeling is what sustains the winning streak. That is why it is impossible for a novice trader to put on a string of winning trades. When many of the industry-based market analysts would give their right arm for a string of winning trades, the analysts have the skill but they don't have a winning attitude, so they are operating out of fear. The novice trader experiences the feeling of a winning attitude because he is not afraid. But that doesn't mean he has a winning attitude. It only means he has an experience from his trading activities to make him afraid. Reacting to loss. Eventually, your novice trader will experience a loss and being wrong regardless of how positive he is feeling. Losing and being wrong are inevitable realities of trading. The most positive attitude imaginable coupled with the best analytical skill can prevent a trader from eventually experiencing a losing trade. The market are just too erratic and there are too many variables to consider for any trader to be right every time. What happens when the novice trader finally does lose? What effect will it have on a carefree state of mind? The answer will depend on his expectation going into the trade and how he interprets the experience. And how he interprets the experience is a function of his belief and attitudes. What if he is operating out of belief that there is no possible way to avoid a loss because losing is a natural consequence of trading no different from, let's say, a restaurant owner incurring the expense of having to buy food. Furthermore, suppose that he has completely accepted the risks, meaning that he has considered and accounted for all of what will otherwise be the unacceptable possibilities in the market behavior, both financially and emotionally. With this belief and expectation, it is unlikely that he will experience a deterioration of his attitude and will simply go on to the next trade. By the way, this is an example of an ideal set of trading belief and attitudes. Now suppose that he hasn't completely accepted the risks. What if his expectation didn't take into account any market behavior other than what he wanted? From this mental perspective, if the market doesn't do what he wants, he's going to feel pain, emotional pain. Expectations are our mental representation of how some future movement in the environment is going to look, sound, feel, smell, or taste. Depending upon how much energy is behind the expectation, it can hurt a lot when it isn't fulfilled. Of the two different perspectives I just described, which one is likely to be held by a novice trader? The latter, of course. Only the very best traders have acquired the perspective described in the first scenario. And as I indicated in the chapter 1, unless these very best traders grew up in successful trading families or had super traders or mentors whose appropriate attitudes over risks and loss were instilled in them from the very beginning of their career. Virtually every one of them had the common experience of losing one or more fortunes before they realized how they needed to think in order to be constantly successful. It is a fundamental shift in attitudes that account for the success, not some brilliant realization about the market as most people erroneously assume. This erroneous assumption is prevalent among traders simply because very few of them really understand at the deepest level just how critical a component attitude is in determining one's success. We can safely assume that after a loss, our novice trader will be in a state of emotional pain. As a result, his trading will take on a whole new quality. He will definitely lose that carefree state of mind. What more important, he will feel that the market did this to him. The market caused him to feel the pain he is experiencing. The market took away his winning feeling by subjecting him to a loss. Notice how our trader is blaming the market for losing or what he didn't get. Notice too how natural it is to feel the way he does. Think about how many times in our life, especially as children, we were doing something we really enjoy, like playing with a toy or with our friends, and someone with more power and authority forced us to stop what we were doing and do something we didn't want to do. All of us have lost things, had things taken away from us, being denied things we wanted or believed we deserved, being prevented from continuing an activity we were in the middle of, or being blocked from pursuing an idea we were passionate about. The point is that in many of these situations, we do not need to take personal responsibility for what happened to us or for the pain we experienced. Because we are powerless to do anything about it, we do not choose to be forced out instead of joy and happiness. into a state of emotional pain. The decision was out of our hands against our will and usually quite abrupt. Even though we may have been told we were responsible for what was happening to us, we may not have believed it or understood what it meant. What's tangible and what we can most easily relate to is that we were having fun and someone or something took us out of that fun and into the pain. It wasn't our choice. The cause of our pain came to us from the outside. Therefore, whatever force acted upon us in that moment was to blame. We learned not only that feeling good can instantly be replaced with feeling bad through not fault our own, we also learned about betrayal. We felt betrayed because many of these situations were completely unexpected or unanticipated, meaning we were unprepared for how some people in our lives had the potential to behave. If the behavior caused us to slip into the state of emotional pain, then we quite naturally would have felt betrayed. As a side note, I feel it is important to say that many of our past emotionally painful experiences were the result of well-meaning parents, teachers, and friends, many of whom were only doing what they believe at the time was best for us. The best example is a child playing with a toy that is inherently dangerous. Take the toy away Take the toy away and the child will try to express the emotional pain he is experiencing. And if you are dealing with a very young or immature child in our livelihood, he will not listen to anything reasonable that we say about why he cannot play with the toy. But at the same time, many people are born to immature and unreasonable parents or encounter emotionally disturbed teachers, coaches, and employees who subconsciously or intentionally inflict their personal problems on anyone who perceives as having less power. What's even worse is many of the people who have a tendency toward victimizing others are also clever enough to do it in a way that makes the victim believe they caused their own pain. In any case, whether our painful experience as the result of an act of love or intentionally inflicted is something each of us will have to determine for ourselves. The bottom line is that as adults, when we get into trading mode, we don't realize how natural it is to associate the instantaneous shift from joy to pain that we experience so often as children with the same instantaneous shift from joy to pain that occurs when we trade. The implications are that if we hadn't learned to accept the inherent tricks of trading and don't know how to guard against making this natural connection between our past and the present, we will end up blaming the market for our results instead of taking responsibility for them. Even though most people who trade consider themselves responsible adults, only the very best traders will have reached a point where they can and do accept complete responsibility for the outcome of any particular trade. Everyone is to one degree or another assume they are taking responsibility, but the reality is that they want the market to do it for them. The typical trader wants the market to fulfill his expectations, his hopes and dreams. Society may work this way, but the market certainly don't. In society, we can't expect other people to behave in reasonable and responsible ways. When they don't, and we suffer as a result, society makes remedies available to rectify the imbalance and make us whole again. The market, on the other hand, has no responsibility to give us anything or do anything that will benefit us. This may not be the way markets are advertised and certainly not the impression they want to project. But the reality is every trader who participates in the market does so for his own benefit. The only way one trader can benefit if some other trader loses, whether the loss is in actual dollar as in a future trade or lost opportunity as in a stock trade. When you put on a trade, it is anticipation of making money. Every other trader in the world who puts on a trade does so for the same reason. When you look at the relationship with the market from this perspective, you will say that you opportunity to extract money from the market, but by the same token, the market source opportunity to extract money or opportunity from you. If the market is a group of people interacting to extract money from one another, then what is the market responsibility to the individual trader? It has no responsibility other than to follow the rules it has established to facilitate this activity. The point is, if you ever found yourself blaming the market for feeling betrayed, then you have not given enough consideration to the implication of what it means to play a zero-sum game. Any degree of blaming means you have not accepted the reality that the market owes you nothing, regardless of what you want or think or how much effort you put into your trading. In the market, typical social values of exchange do not come into play. If you don't understand this and find a way to reconcile the difference between the social norms you grew up with and the way the market works, you will continue to project your hopes, dreams, and desire onto the market, believing it's going to do something for you. When it doesn't, you feel angry, frustrated, emotionally disturbed, and betrayed. Taking responsibility means acknowledging and accepting at the deepest part of your identity, and you, not the market, are completely responsible for the success of failure as a trader. Granted, the market purpose to separate you from your money, but in the process of doing so, it also provides you with the endless system of opportunity for you to take money from it. When prices move, the movement represents the collective action of everyone participating at the movement. The market also generates information about itself and makes it extremely easy to enter and exit trade. From the individual perspective, price, movement, information, and the ability to enter and exit trade represent opportunities to see something and to act on what you perceive. During each movement, the market are open. You have an opportunity to enter a position, lighten up a position, add to a position, or exit a position. These are all opportunities to induce yourself by taking profit or at least cutting your loss. Let me pose a question: do you feel responsible for fulfilling other trader expectation, hopes, dreams, and desire? Of course you don't. It sounds absurd to even ask. However, if you ever find yourself leaving the market and feeling betrayed, this is essentially what you are doing. You are expecting the quality action of having participated in the market to make the market act in a way that gives you what you want. You have to learn for yourself how to get what you want out of the market. The first major step in this learning process is taking complete and absolute responsibility. म अहिले खान्छु म अहिले खान्छु म Taking responsibility means believing that all of our outcomes are self-generated and that your results are based on your interpretation of market information, the decision you make, and the action you take as a result. Taking anything less than complete responsibility sets up two major obstacles that can block your success. First, you will establish an adversarial relationship with the market that takes you out of the constant flow of opportunities. Second, you will mislead yourself into believing that your trading problems and lack of success can be rectified through market analysis. Let's consider the first obstacle. When you project and decrease responsibility on the market or giving you money or cutting your losses, the market can all too easily take on the quality of an adversary or enemy. Losing when you expect the market to do something different from what it did will tap you into the same childlike feeling of pain, anger, resentment, and powerlessness that all of us felt when someone took something away from us, didn't give us what we wanted, or would not let us do what we wanted. No one likes to feel denied. No one likes to feel denied, especially if you believe that getting what we want will make us happy. In each of these situations, something or someone outside of us prevents us from expressing ourselves in some particular way. In other words, some outside force were acting against the inner force of our desire and expectation. As a result, it feels natural to assign the market to the power of an outside force that either gives or takes away. But consider the fact that the market presents information from a neutral perspective. That means the market doesn't know what you want or expect, nor does it care unless, of course, you trade the kind of position that can have a major impact on price. Otherwise, each movement, each bid, and each offer gives you the opportunity to do something. You can put on a trade, take profit, or take off a loser. This is also true for those of you who are floor traders and are person known to other floor traders who may also know your position and to your detriment purposely take advantage of the knowledge. It just means that you have to be faster and more focused or take whatever limitations you have in these areas in consideration and trade accordingly. From the market perspective, each movement is neutral. To you, the observer, every movement and price change can have meaning, but where do this meaning exist? The meaning are based on what you have learned and exist inside your mind, not in the market. The market doesn't attach meaning or interpret the information it generates about itself. Although there are always individuals who offer an interpretation if you are willing to listen. Furthermore, the market doesn't know you how you define an opportunity or loss. The market doesn't know whether you perceive it as an endless stream of opportunity to enter and exist for both profits and losses at each and every moment, or whether you perceive it as greedy, monster ready, and willing in any given moment to devour your money. If you perceive the endless stream of opportunities to enter and exit trade without self-criticism and regret, then you will be in the best frame of mind to act in your own best interest and learn from your experience. On the other hand, if what you perceive in market information is painful in some way, then you will naturally try to avoid that pain by either consciously or subconsciously blocking that information from your awareness. In the process of blocking the information, you systematically cut yourself off from any number of opportunities to induce yourself. In other words, you cut yourself off from the opportunity flow. Furthermore, it will feel like the market is against you, but only if you expect it to do something for you, or if you believe that it owes you something. If someone or something is against you and causes you pain, how are you likely to respond? You will feel compelled to fight, but what exactly are you fighting? The market is certainly not fighting you. Yes, the market wants your money, but it also provides you with the opportunity to take as much as you can. Although it may feel as if you are fighting the market or it is fighting you, the reality is you are simply fighting the negative consequence of your fully accepting that the market owes you nothing and that you need to take advantage of opportunity it presents by yourself, 100% not 1 degree less. The way to take maximum advantage of a situation where you are being offered unlimited opportunity to do something for yourself is to get into the flow. The market does have a flow. It is often erratic, especially in the short-term time frames, but it does display symmetrical patterns that repeat themselves over and over again. Obviously, it is a contradiction to flow with something you are against. If you want to start sensing the flow of market, your mind has to be relatively free of fear, anger, regret, betrayal, despair, and disappointment. You won't have a reason to experience this negative emotion when you assume absolute responsibility. Earlier, I said that when you don't take responsibility, one of the major psychological obstacles that can block your success is that you will mislead yourself into believing that the trading problems and lack of consistency can be rectified through market analysis. To illustrate this point, let's go back to our novice trader who started out with a carefree state of mind until he experienced his first loss. After winning with such ease and effortlessness, the abrupt shift to emotional pain can be quite shocking. Not shocking enough. However, to quit trading beside in his mind the situation wasn't his fault anyway. The market did it to him. Instead of quitting, the great feeling that he experienced when he was winning will be fresh in his mind and will inspire him with a sense of determination to continue trading. Only now he is going to be smarter about it. He is going to put some effort into it and learn everything he can about the market. It is perfectly logical to think that if he can win not knowing anything, he will be able to clean up when he does know something. But what's the big problem is that very few, if any trader, will have any awareness of until long after the damage is done. Learning about the market is fine and doesn't cause a problem in itself. It's the underlying reason for learning about the market that will ultimately prove to be his undoing. As I said a month ago, the sudden shift from joy to pain usually creates quite a psychological shock. Very few people ever learn how to reconcile this kind of experience in a healthy way. Techniques are available, but they are not widely known. The typical response is most people, especially the type of person attracted to trading, is revenge. For traders, the only way to extract that revenge is to conquer the market, and the only way to conquer the market is through market knowledge, or so they think. In other words, the underlying reason for why the novice trader is learning about the market is to overcome the market, to prove something to it and himself, and most important, to prevent the market from hurting him again. He is not learning the market simply as a means to give himself a systematic way of winning, but rather as a way to either avoid pain or prove something that has absolutely nothing to do with looking at the market from an objective perspective. He doesn't realize it, but as soon as he made the assumption that knowing something about the market can prevent him from experiencing pain or can help satisfy a desire for revenge or to prove something, he sealed his faith up to become a loser. In effect, what he has done is set up an irreconcilable dilemma. He is learning how to recognize and understand the market quality behavior pattern, and that's good. It even feels good. He is inspired because he assumes he is learning about the market in order to become a winner. As a result, he will typically go on a knowledge quest learning about trend lines, chart patterns, support and resistance, candlestick market profile, point and the line chart, Elliott waves, Fibonacci retracement, oscillators, relative strength, stochastics, and many more technical tools, too numerous to mention. Curiously, even though his knowledge has increased, he now finds that he develops problems executing his trade. He hesitates, second guess himself, or doesn't put on trade at all. In spite of any number of clear signals to do so, it's all frustrating, even maddening, because what's happened doesn't make sense. He did what he was supposed to do. He learned only to find that more he learned, the less he took advantage of. He will never believe that he did anything wrong by devoting himself to learning. He simply did it for the wrong reason. He won't be able to trade effectively if he is trying to prove something or anything for that matter. If you have to win, if you have to be right, if you can't lose or can't be wrong, you will cause yourself to define and perceive categories of market information as painful. In other words, you will be as painful any information the market generates that is in opposition to what will make you happy. The dilemma is that our mind are wired to avoid both physical and emotional pain, and learning about the market will not compensate for the negative effect our pain avoidance mechanism have on our trading. Everybody understands the nature of avoiding physical pain. Accidentally set your hand on a hot burner and your hand moves away from the heat automatically. It is an instinctive reaction. However, when it comes to avoiding emotional pain and the negative consequences it creates, especially for traders, very few people understand the dynamics. It's absolutely essential to your deployment that you understand this negative effect and learn how to take conscious control in a way that helps you fulfill your goal. Our mind has a number of ways to shield us from information that we have learned to perceive as painful. For example, at a conscious level, we can rationalize, justify, or make a case for staying in a losing trade. Some of the more typical ways to do this we are called out trading, body stock to our broker, or look at indicators we never use. All for the express purpose of gathering non-painful information in order to deny the validity of painful information. At a subconscious level, our mind will automatically alter, distort, or specifically exclude information from our conscious awareness. In other words, we don't know at a conscious level that our pain avoidance mechanisms are either excluding or altering the information being offered by the market.